welcome back to the podcast. We're the Cinemaxxers. I'm Yoni. I'm here with my two friends, Adam and Joseph. We're college students that love to talk about movies. And today we're going to be talking about movies that we think are personally overrated and movies that are underrated. So I believe Adam's going to start us off, and then I'm going to go, and then Joseph's going to go. It should be a fun episode.
Yeah. So everyone, thanks for returning. So this is going to be a fun episode because we love to debate our topics. I know a few of us have some hot takes. So I'll get us started here. I'm going to quickly share my screen. Um, so yeah, we have these debates all of the time. There's always something new, but I think this episode is pretty much going to sum up kind of what we think. So here's a letterbox stats list that you can see. You're going to be able to see my rating with the stars, and then the number that you see is the consensus rating on Letterboxd. So I'm going to run through these. This is generated by Letterboxd. A few of these we won't talk about because they're not as relevant, but a lot of these we will talk about. So the number one biggest discrepancy is Tenet. It's one of my favorite movies ever, and people for some reason think it's incredibly mid. And I cannot wait to not only prove them wrong, but also just explain why it's so underrated. The next one is also perfectly summed up, and that's Captain America Civil War. It's the best Marvel movie. It has one of the most underrated villains ever in Zemo. Just unbelievable dynamics going on. It really epitomizes what Marvel is to me. When I think of Marvel, I
Wow.
think of this movie. Um, so I'll move through the rest, but we're going to also talk about some of these rest. We got Avengers Age of Ultron, in my opinion, another top three Avengers movie. Very good. I think it's only behind Civil War and Infinity War for me. Then you have Grown Ups, which, again, it might not be that hot of a take to say it's 4.5, but I guess the consensus is 3.3. It's probably my favorite comedy movie ever. It's hilarious. Mr. Peabody and Sherman is one I will talk about relatively a decent amount if you guys have watched it. If not, so and so. Revenant, we won't really talk about because we already talked about that in episode one. Pants on Fire, that's just there because Letterboxd put it there. It's a movie I watched when I was younger. We don't really have to talk about it. Same with Paul Blart Mall Cop and Minions. Revenge of the Sith is one we're definitely going to be talking about. It's the best Star Wars movie of all time, and it's arguably the greatest trilogy ending movie of all time. Um, All Quiet on the Western Front we can talk about, but I'm not sure we're that far apart in terms of one of us is five, one of us is four, we don't have to, and then Ted is just another one that it put there. But let's start off with Tenet. No more ads this time. Finally was able to invest in Patron. Shout out Letterboxd. Tenet, in my opinion, is Christopher Nolan's third or fourth best movie, only behind Interstellar, the greatest movie ever, The Dark Knight, and then it's interchangeable with Oppenheimer for me. Tenet is the most hated on movie for absolutely no reason, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, one of the biggest critiques that I see is the sound mixing with it's hard to hear dialogue. If you really can't tell that, just use subtitles. That's my response to that. I get a big part of movies is your experience in the movie theater. We also have to remember this was around COVID time. So the whole movie theater setup was kind of scuffed up. It was weird. So as for that comment, you might be right because maybe the mixing is off, but that has nothing to do with the actual plot or the acting. So that would be my response.
Acting and Tenet in the same sentence.
So the next thing that we'll go over, because you mentioned it, is the acting. The acting in Tenet is so underrated. Let's go down to the cast right here. I'm pretty sure it should be down here. If not,
I think
I
you have
can
to
just.
click on the
That you can see it
Oh,
click.
right
right
there.
here. Okay, perfect. So Robert Pattinson is unbelievable as Neil, in
It's
my
not
opinion.
unbelievable.
That's the best
It's
performance in
trash.
this movie.
Low
Um,
bar for me.
Unbelievable, not a low bar at all. John David Washington left a little bit to be desired in this movie, but again, this movie is not carried by dialogue. This movie is not carried by acting. It's carried by the look of the movie. Cinematography is beautiful, but most of all, it's carried by arguably the greatest plot ever. Better than Interstellar, which is the greatest movie
God,
ever. In my opinion, Tenet
that's
has the
disgusting.
greatest plot ever. Again, quick
The plot's
spoiler alert.
bad.
Because those of you that haven't watched Tenet might have skipped over this, but in case you're still watching and you haven't watched Tenet, spoiler alert here. When you find out that he owned Tenet the whole time, it's one of the greatest twists in movie history. it's unbelievable, and the setup to it is so good. So I can keep raving about this movie, but I'm going to open it up to you, Joseph and Yoni, because you've pretty much stayed quiet throughout all of this. In my opinion, Tenet is the most underrated movie ever.
Um, I don't know where to start. I think I couldn't disagree more with like a single thing you said a single thing you said, to be honest, because like
Okay.
firstly, I think I have this movie at a 3, and I think that's like relatively generous in the sense that I just think the concept, I wouldn't even call it the plot, the concept of this movie carries, and like the action sequences carry. Um, the acting is wooden for pretty much everyone, even Pattinson. Pattinson is good in the movie, but it's like again, he doesn't really have much to do. Yeah, again, John David Washington is wooden as hell. Kenneth Branagh is a stereotypical Russian mafia villain who offers nothing. Elizabeth
That's just
Debicki
not
as
true. You
Kat
didn't
is a
watch the movie if you don't
terrible
know what
female
if
character.
you don't know what Sador provides to this movie, then you
He is
either
a
absolutely
one-dimensional villain.
that's just
Elizabeth
incorrect.
Debicki as Kat is just a damsel
Okay,
in
tell me what
distress.
Sador's purpose in the movie is if he's one dimensional then.
Sador is like the person that discovered the algorithm, or he didn't like discover the algorithm, but he had access to the algorithm, and he's just kind of like representative of like the corruption of power, I think. That's like what Nolan's trying to get through, in my opinion, but I just think he's just a super flat character.
I'll let you continue, but you couldn't be more incorrect about that, but go keep going.
I'll let Yoni chime in. I don't want to dominate for too
I
long.
mean, I agree with I agree with Joseph. I think I have it as a 2 star or something. I don't think it's a
It's a completely
uh
valid ranking.
Oh, that is hilarious.
I I just don't like pretty much any of it. I think the plot is extremely overwhelming and extremely it can be very confusing at times. I think that the acting is I just wouldn't call it that good. I think Robert Pattinson's fine. I think that all the characters have a very similar feel and mood, and you can't.
No, no, no.
Everyone feels the same. It feels like every character is the same. There's no distinction between
Yeah.
one's personality and the others.
Every character just
It
just
just all it
exposition
all
dumps the whole
feels
time.
this. It all feels the same, and it all feels so one-noted. It feels very bland. Well, Christopher Nolan, he can struggle at that with times, but I think that it's very, very clear here how
I think you're meaning to talk about Arrival when you say one noted and bland. I don't think you're talking about the right movie.
no,
Calling
I don't.
Arrival bland. I don't, again,
No,
Oh, we'll get to that
you're
later. That we'll
shifting
get
the
to that later.
subject
that's not the
because
Don't
movie
worry,
that
we'll
I'm
get to
talking
that
about.
later.
That's not the movie that I'm talking about now.
Okay, okay. Just
I
making
don't
sure.
think
So
I
let me
think
respond
calling
to a few things.
hold on, hold
When
on,
you,
hold on.
oh, go for it.
I think calling Tenet the greatest plot of all time is
It
insane.
is.
it
That is
is
It is.
insane.
insane. That is an
Tenet's
It's the
plot
most
is
insane.
well thought
bad.
of
It's
plot
not
ever, and
even
it's
a
ahead of
good
its time.
plot. It's a
It's
bad
ahead of its
plot.
time. It's ahead of its time.
There's a difference between plot and concept. I like the concept. The plot is poorly executed.
I appreciate the concept. That is a
So,
horrendous take that you have.
And also,
so
we have this conversation like, okay, so like Tenet is incredibly convoluted, too convoluted, in my opinion, by a lot, because you know a movie's convoluted when you have a conversation with people about the movie, they're not talking about the movie, they're talking about the Reddit post they read that is explaining the movie.
so can I respond?
Sure.
All right. So first of all, I do want to. There's one thing I wanted to respond to, and then I'll get to the plot and why it is the greatest plot. But I wanted to respond. You mentioned action sequences. I think the action sequences are the second best part of this movie behind the plot. I mean, just simply, I don't even know what the revolving door, the double-sided mirror. You can call that
That
scene
part's
whatever
cool,
you
I
want.
agree.
It's not only unbelievably executed in terms of the fact Nolan was able to make it look that good. Obviously, the contrasting colors, you can see the red, blue. At least it dumbs it down for a viewer that doesn't want to really look into it like you two. So it kind of dumbs it down, red, blue. It,
Mhm.
it makes it as obvious as it can. But obviously, it's way too complex for a normal, casual viewer to see, which is why I'm going to say, on my first watch of this movie, I think I gave it a 3.5 to a 4 star, and I didn't actually think about it in that terms because I didn't have Letterboxd yet. But I'm like, this is a solid movie. I didn't really get it, but I loved how it looked. It was really cool. Let me go do some research. I spent about an
There it
hour
is.
and a half. No, I spent an hour and a half to 2 hours digging up everything I could find. And then I rewatched the movie immediately after the next day. That's when it became my third, maybe fourth favorite Nolan movie of all time. If your argument for a movie is that if you have to research it, it's not good, that's lazy.
That's not what my
That's
argument is,
that's
but
My,
every
my,
that's
you
a
if
very
you research
small
this
part
movie,
of the argument that we
if
have.
you research this movie and then you watch it, you guys will agree with me, but you have still
But this
refused
is
to
the
do it.
problem. But this is the problem. You agreed, and I think most people agree, the first time you watch it, it's way too convoluted that you have to read an hour or two worth of stuff to
It's
understand what's
but
happening.
my rating
That
is
is a
not a
problem
first
with the
watch
movie. That
rating.
is
It's a movie
problematic.
rating. It's a movie rating, not a first watch rating. First
But the
watch rating is
problem is the
different.
movie. Movies are inherently designed to give you a first watch experience.
That's where we disagree. Some movies are like huge movies. I'm not going to say like, but movies that we both know about that are relying on the plot twist. Those are huge one watch movies. But when you have movies that are relying, this movie doesn't rely on the plot twist. It's great, but what it relies on is the
It has nothing to do
concept.
with the plot twist. Why it's
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Not all movies need to be first watch movies. Some movies can get better as you watch it
I
more and
think
more and more.
me and Yoni are the two people that would agree with that the most. Like I
So
think
you agree, movies
no,
can
but
get
what I'm
better.
saying is uh, f- what should constitute a movie being good on second watch should be how the movie changes from the first time you watched it, strictly within the realm of the film. It shouldn't be
That's
like
where we disagree.
you read like 2 hours of Reddit posts and therefore you
I didn't have
understand
to
the
read 2 hours.
exact
I
plot
chose to
lines and what's happening
because
all at once in Tenet.
and if you watch it with that knowledge in mind, you will agree it's a 5 star. I don't want to dwell too much because I don't want to take up this whole episode on Tenet. But is there any
You
closing
say
thoughts?
that, but like I've seen it twice. I did research after the first time
You
I
have no
watched
clue
it
what's
because I was
going
like,
on
"Oh, this
if
is
you think it's a
interesting." I was
3 star.
confused. And the second time I watched it, I'm just like, "There's nothing that's that great about this movie." I'm
Then
sorry.
you didn't research it well enough because
I'm
if you
sorry.
know what's
It's not
going
an
on and
argument.
watch
No,
it,
it's not an argument. You can't just say you didn't research it well
but I
enough. You can't
can.
just shut down anyone's argument by saying you don't understand the film. That's not a good argument.
I mean, you clearly don't, but okay.
Yoni, what do you
I don't
say?
want to take up too much time. Yoni, any closing thoughts?
We've talked about Tenet a lot. We'll talk about it more in the future.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
We all know each other's
We could
opinions,
have a full
but
hour-long Tenet episode in the
I think we
future.
got to keep this moving
Yeah,
along.
I'm with you here. All right. I'm probably going to talk about probably four total movies, similar to the last episode. The next one I'm going to go over is Captain America's Civil War. We could also have an entire episode on this. There's so much to
Yeah, we
talk
could.
about, but I'm going to go over the basics. First of all, I mean, Daniel Bruhl as Zemo, yeah, we have this is one of our biggest disagreements. I think he's the second best, if not the best villain in all of Marvel. Thanos would be the best if you think about it overall wise, because he's the whole reason why Marvel works. But if you go one movie, it's Zemo in this movie, and here's why. Not only does he unlock the Winter Soldier, completely changing everything. I mean, that one scene where he's sitting there reading out the trigger words that completely unlocks him, it not only changes the whole movie, but when you go aside of the villain, the entire premise of this movie is whether Marvel and the Avengers in general should submit to governmental rule. I think that's such a nuanced way to think about Marvel because Marvel's superheroes, it's cool. This creates a political way, which Age of Ultron kind of introduced with the controversy. If you guys can remind me, was it Sokovia? There was
Yeah.
like a controversy on what they did was right. They saved lives, but also people were killed. This makes it completely nuanced. And yes, there's the cool action sequence at the airport where they're all fighting against each other. But the overall premise that there would be the Avengers would be split on whether they should be ruled by the government completely changes the dynamic of Marvel, and it makes it so much more. You can see right here, I'm going to highlight it. United we stand, divided we fall. It perfectly describes it, and the ending of the movie, in my opinion, got ruined by Infinity War when all of a sudden they just made up. But if that's Infinity War's fault, not Civil War's fault. Civil War did an unbelievable job with this movie, and obviously the last thing I want to talk about is the unbelievable fight scene you can see in the background, Captain America and the
And the
Winter
airport
Soldier
scene.
versus Iron Man. It's one of the best action
The airport
sequences
scene.
in movie history.
Airport scene is overrated.
I'm
No.
not necessarily talking about the airport scene, even though it's unbelievable. And then you also have Spider-Man being introduced into the MCU for the first time ever. This movie has so much to it, and in my opinion, it's not only the best Marvel movie ever, but it has one of the most underrated villains ever. So that's my piece.
Adam, I don't totally disagree. I don't really disagree with anything you said. I think this is potentially Marvel's best representation of Spider-Man. I think
Yep,
that Thanos as a villain, I have issues with him. And I don't think saying Zemo as the second best is that crazy.
it's
Uh,
not.
I have Civil War at a 4 star. I think it's great. The one problem I have with Civil War, which I know both of you disagree with, I think Cap and Iron Man's motives should be totally flipped. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think that Iron Man should be um, against wanting to end superheroes and against the government, and Captain America should be pro. Well, in the movie they're flipped because Captain America throughout his three movies has always been with the government. He was a government creation. He was
I
always
don't agree that he's
with them
been
during
with the
World War
government.
II. And then Iron Man on the other side, the entire point of Iron Man is no, he's keeping his suit. He's not going to let the government take his suit. I watched all three Iron Mans very recently, and that was the whole theme and message that Tony Stark as a character was trying to prove.
Wait, can I respond?
Do you remember why the Sokovia Accords came into effect, Yoni, and
I
why?
don't totally remember
Yeah,
Winter
let me just give a
Soldier.
quick reminder. The
I was going
reason
to ask
why
you
the
that though.
government wanted to sanction them was because in Age of Ultron, they dropped an entire island on people, and that had such an impact on Iron Man's character. And he watched videos he literally couldn't watch. Whereas Captain America was able to see through that and say, that's the reality of war. We saved an entire people and we saved so many people that, yes, when the island eventually dropped, people died, but he was able to see past that. And I think that's part of his character. Whereas Iron Man he's really a human. He just in a suit. He's not a superhuman. And he wasn't able to see past that, and he just wanted to submit. I'm with Joseph here. I think
Can I chime in here? I'll briefly respond to Yoni's point, but then I'll give my other thoughts on the movie and why I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's overall a good movie, but why I disagree with your take here. Just on Yoni's point, I think I think you're kind of conflating like affiliation with the government, as a symbol to him supporting the government. Because if you look at Winter Soldier, he sees the own government that like obviously like the government is a continuation from the government that he was created by, right? That's just how it works. The American government continues, is literally being ran for the most part by the same people he fought against, and he sacrificed himself, and he saw what they did to people and what they've done to his best friend. He saw how corrupt the government is and how really they're not to trust with their motives. So that's one of the reasons he's against it, because he doesn't trust the government and their motives, especially after Winter Soldier. That's that point. What I will say about the movie as a whole. Um, I think part of the problem with this movie, I think Adam addressed a good point about why he likes it, but it's actually kind of one of the reasons I don't like it as much, is talks about the nuanced kind of factor of like the ideologies being compared and how like it presents an interesting view on superheroes. I agree that the premise is interesting and it's good for a Marvel movie. I just don't think there's a resolution. Like here's the reality with this. The reality, like you mentioned, and you don't take off for this, I kind of think it's important. In the same way that like people take off from Force Awakens from the sequels because of how the other ones, like Infinity War basically just vetoes Civil War to an extent. Like it just like snap comes back like this, and like they kind of
that's
argue,
Infinity
bicker for a
War's
little
fault, in
bit.
my opinion, though. That's
The
not
other
Civil War's
problem
fault.
is at the end of the day, there isn't really a thesis that the movie gives on like what the role of superheroes is, in my opinion. I think at the end of the day, with him breaking them out as well, it's just like superheroes will be superheroes. They're just going to do what they want, like kind of thing. I think it presents an interesting situation. I just don't really think it follows up in a meaningful way.
Can I present to you my thesis before I move on from this one?
Okay. Yeah.
What I take from this movie personally, I see Yoni smiling. What I take from this movie personally is that superheroes have such big egos, and some are willing to look past the death and destruction that they can reap if it's for the betterment of the world, whereas some are every life matters. That's Team Iron Man, whereas Team Cap is every life is important, but in general, saving the world, there's no reason for things to be checked. And the resolution of them being locked up, and I know they were broken out, but the resolution of Team Cap ending up being locked up, I think was perfectly fine. I think if this was a standalone movie, there would have been a much better resolution, but they had to know that Thanos was coming. And I think another important thing is, despite this argument, they can still end up working together for the betterment of the world and saving it from Thanos. It's not perfect, which is why it's not in my top four or top five. It's probably like my 15th favorite movie ever, maybe 14th. But it does its best to try and mix being a standalone movie and being a part of a franchise. That's what I'd say. All right.
Okay.
Do we have any final thoughts before I move on to the next? Nope. All right. Perfect. All right. So
Oh,
yeah, those are directors. Okay. So as for higher than average, we can just here. I'll let
my
it.
screen is like okay, now it's
Yeah, no,
loaded.
it should have
I
loaded
don't
now.
think we should talk about Age of
Yeah,
Ultron.
don't
I
talk
don't
about
think
Age of
Yeah, we
Ultron.
don't have to talk about much more.
Talk about
Have you guys
Romance.
watched Peabody and
I
Sherman,
have
Mr.
watched
Peabody?
Peabody and
Yeah.
Sherman.
Talk
You
about
have?
Romance.
Okay, I'm not going to click on this one. I guess I can click on it. This will be a really quick one. This one's a personal one for me. I watched this when I was younger. I absolutely love the I'm a Dog Too scene. It's corny, but when you're young, it really has an impact that like everybody can that you can separate differences and everyone at the end of the day is a living being. I love the idea of the way back. I think it's fascinating seeing them going back through time and then the relationship between Sherman and I honestly forget her name, whoever I haven't watched it in like a year or two. I just think it's amazing. If you guys have any quick thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
I mean, I saw it like in theaters when it came out. That's the only
Yeah,
time I've seen it. I thought it was good.
I'd encourage a
I don't have
rewatch.
any I don't have any problem with like anyone having a movie that they felt personally connected to, especially if it's a
Yeah,
childhood movie like this high. It's like your
yeah,
opinion, so I'm not
that's
gonna
fair.
argue with that. I
Yeah,
like personally don't have it this high. Again, I've only seen it once, but it's not, I don't have any problem with it. If that's
Yeah,
why
yeah,
you're looking for
I've
it.
seen it once or twice. I thought it was good. I thought it was really good. I don't think it does anything particularly special, but if you
yeah.
have it because like I guess you personally loved it, I don't have a problem with it. But it's a good movie.
Yep.
I
All
think
right.
there's one. Is there
Revenge of the
one other
Sith.
you wanted to do for rated higher than average or no?
Yeah, one more if you're cool
I
with
think
that.
there's one more that we should do, which is,
Revenge of the Sith.
yeah, I was thinking that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I wanted to go next. Okay. Revenge of the Sith. I mentioned it in the intro. It's the best Star Wars movie ever. It's a perfect way. Obviously, George Lucas was locked in the sense Anakin had to turn, and he had to do that in one episode, while also making 1,000 other things, knowing that the Clone Wars was coming. Again, we could get in all these discussions, but just at face value, the opening is my favorite opening scene in all of Star Wars. The ending is my favorite ending in all of Star Wars. The middle, it never slows down for 1 second. This movie is the fastest Star Wars movie by a country mile. The first two prequels can get slow. All of the originals can get slow, even though they're arguably better dialogue. But that's not really what I look for in a movie. If you do, then obviously you'll like the originals better. And we all agree the sequels are just not it. This is the fastest movie by a while. I was never bored. I think I've watched this movie six, seven, 8 times. Um, I just this movie every single time I watch it, I hope that Anakin doesn't go over. Spoiler alert. I hope Anakin doesn't
Everyone
go
has
over
seen this, dude.
Spoiler alert,
and
he does.
and end up helping Palpatine kill Windu, his turn to the dark side, the ultimate final fight. I could say as much as I want. I want to hear you guys' critiques of this movie because I would love to debunk them.
Wait, I can start for this. Also, I don't like that you're saying I'd love to debunk. You can't debunk the fact that the dialogue is shit. I'm sorry.
I disagree.
Like,
Your
you
least
disagree
favorite
that the
line is
dialogue is bad in this
your
movie.
least favorite
You don't
line
think the
is in
dialogue is
my
bad.
eyes the Jedi. What's the exact line?
The worst line, I mean, there's numerous weird lines,
Yeah,
but is
give me
from
the.
my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Like,
That's
who
not a
talks
bad
like
line.
that? That
Yoni,
is
what
a
are your
bad
thoughts? Is that
line.
a bad
What
line?
it's bad line and bad delivery. He's
No,
like acting angry. He says, "From
I don't
my
know
point
the
of view, the
exact
Jedi are
scene.
evil." It's
I think the dialogue in the prequels are
what about this one? You will not
unbelievably
take her
good.
from me.
that's not
Also,
that
again, I don't
bad.
want to mock Hayden
He's emotional.
Christensen, but like
It
the
was
pendulum has swung way too far in terms of not only prequel overcorrection and how good they are, but also like people being like, man, like Hayden Christensen, like he was actually really good in this movie. Like, no, he wasn't. I'm sorry. Like he didn't deserve the hate. I'm sure he's a wonderful person, and it's really good that he rebounded and like was able to continue acting and he's done smaller projects. I know he returned for Obi-Wan. He's not very good in this movie. I'm sorry. And he's not the only one. Natalie Portman is also bad in this movie, and she's also bad
That
in Attack of the Clones. Like, you know. And that's part of that is just the dialogue and that George Lucas doesn't really I think he's not a very good director. He's a great world builder. I just don't think he's a very good director. I'll let Yoni. I have one other thing
Yeah,
I'd like to
Yoni.
bring up, but let's see what Yoni has to
Yeah,
say.
Yoni, go for it.
Yeah, I guess my biggest problem with it is not necessarily its fault. I think that the prequels should have started. I don't think that Anakin should have been a child when we started. I think that it's a
Yeah.
waste of the movie. I don't think that we get to see really good character development. I think we could have maybe had Anakin as a child for the first half hour, 45 minutes of episode one. And because of him being a child in episode one,
You think it causes this movie to rush?
we miss out on Anakin's turn to the turn to the Sith becomes really fast and it becomes rushed. And I don't think it's 100% episode three's fault. I think that they had to accomplish a lot in one movie, and I think that Anakin is deserving of more, his character, and I think that his character arc should have been spread out more. And I think that he should have started as maybe a child for the first act of episode one, and then you get to see episode two and the first start of episode one. And then by episode three, you have him where he's really almost at the beginning of the movie, where he's almost at the edge, and you have the whole movie to flesh out his character development. That's my problem with it. I also think the
Yeah,
dialogue isn't good. It has great moments. It has maybe the best fight in Star Wars. No, but probably has the best
the
fight
best fight in
in
Star
Yeah,
all of
I
Wars.
Star
agree. I
Wars.
agree.
Yeah,
It has really, really great moments. It tackles the most interesting concept in Star Wars by a lot, in my opinion. Anakin's
yeah,
turn to the dark side. It has really, really great moments. I just think that it was rushed and Anakin turned far too fast. That's my take on
I
it.
So
agree.
So I'll say this one thing. I know Joseph has a response, and I can actually say it in advance. Joseph's going to say that a show shouldn't have to complement a movie. For everyone watching this, if you loved Revenge of the Sith and you haven't watched the show Star Wars: The Clone Wars and you want more on Anakin's turn to the dark side, you'll get 7 seasons of that. A lot of episodes with Anakin. His eventual turn to the dark side is aided, but I will admit one of the few holdups, and both of you mentioned this, is it's a bit rushed of his turn to the dark side. And that might be because, Yoni, your point, I've never thought of that, that the first episode was, or the first um, movie was wasted. I would just say, I don't think it's so rushed because you have to remember everything was so fast. And I would say the Jedi pushed him to the sense where he had to turn because he was manipulated. This wasn't his fault. He was completely manipulated by Palpatine to make him think the only way for him to save his wife, Padme, was to turn. The Jedi Council doesn't make him a master. They let him sit on the council. They don't make him a master. They don't let him go to confront Palpatine, which is the reason why this happened, and they don't loop him in. So, yes, you could argue it all
So
happened in the
he's not
last
like
third of the
because he
movie.
doesn't get these special privileges, he's gonna become a genocidal dictator, basically. Is
You,
that
you can
I think
say
it's
that,
very,
but he
very
didn't become
rushed.
the genocidal dictator until Padme dying is what did that. That's what did it. That I'm not. What I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, it was the Jedi and Palpatine's fault. It's not like he just suddenly. Like, if you watch the movie, you could at least get a picture of why he turned. It's not that rushed.
I
That'd be
kind of disagree. I think I mean, I see where you're coming from. I don't think like the movie itself, I feel like you can enjoy and you can admit like that scene is rushed. I also think um I'm just gonna bring up this scene right before it and then I'll get to the Clone Wars thing. The choreography in that fight with the Mace Windu is so bad. Like the scream
a
and then
forced
this
scream. There was a forced scream.
that's one of the things I'll get to. That scene is terrible, firstly, until it's one-on-one versus Mace Windu. In terms of like people talking about the Clone Wars and the novelizations, both of which came out after Revenge of the Sith, by the way, as like basically factors that should influence the movie, my opinion is they absolutely shouldn't because those were course corrections done by Lucas and by Star Wars because of the complaints about the Revenge of the Sith and by the prequels. Like they obviously were doing it because the movie itself had that criticism. You use the Force Scream example. That was just bad choreography, and then they make up a Sith like move in the novelization to make up for that. Like that's bullshit. I'm sorry. Um, yeah.
Yeah, last thing I'd say about it is I disagree with the premise of the dialogue's bad. All of the examples you've given me, I completely
What
disagree
about
with.
the whole the entire
I think the
dialogue in the
dialogue in the
balcony scene?
final I think the
It's so
dialogue in the final
cringe.
fight is unreal. We haven't even mentioned Yoda and Palpatine's fight. That's one of the best fights in Star Wars as well, where they're literally throwing things like discs in the sand at each other. Unbelievable scene. Yoda eventually isolating himself. And then we didn't even mention Order 66. That scene's so emotionally captivating. Anakin killing the younglings. I mean, this movie has so
Okay, that
much
scene is
to it.
cringe, dude.
No, it's not. No, it is not.
Master
No, it.
Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we gonna do? Shut
Thanks
the
for your
fuck up,
impression, Joseph.
Jesus.
Huh.
Like, I'm
I disagree
sorry.
with the premise that the dialogue is bad, but
The General Grievous opening is your favorite opening in all of Star Wars?
no,
The Count Dooku battle, I
the
think, is what
space
he's
Oh,
saying.
battle. Do you not remember the
Um,
space battle in the
I don't
ship?
remember the
I mean,
opening.
I don't think Star Wars
I
like
remember General Grievous in the opening. I haven't seen the
Yeah,
movie in
you.
like 3 years.
no,
Yeah, no,
he's in the
you got to
opening,
watch.
but he's not the main part of the opening.
It's
Okay.
the space battle.
He's
Okay.
like in like a small part of that scene where he's like walking around, but like,
Okay.
All right, I don't want to get. I know we spent a while on these, so
all right, let's
um,
let's do the
yeah, let's go quickly for my lower than average because I'm
let's
more
only
of a
do it
higher
one or
than
two
average guy
on
than lower
this.
than average guy. Like I have more strong opinions on movies that are better, not movies that are worse.
You seem
Um,
to have pretty strong opinions here, dude.
I do, but we're
Some
not
of
going to
these are
go through
like
our opinions on them.
plastics.
Extremely
Like,
hot
what do you?
No,
opinions.
they are. So I'm just gonna there's gonna be two that we talk about in depth. The others we'll go over very quickly.
Wait,
The
what
two.
I will say is that one, I will. We can talk about that when I do it because I think you
Okay,
have more
sure.
hot
That
takes
sounds good.
here.
Yeah.
I
Um,
haven't seen it.
Okay. All right. Well, everything, everywhere, all at once. Joseph and I watched this together, and we agreed it's one of the worst movies. I'll say definitely one of the most, if not the most overrated movie ever.
yeah,
We came into it expecting greatness, and it was
we'd
just
heard a
not
lot of
good
good
in
things
either
about
of
it.
our
We'll
opinions.
talk about it when I go later,
Yeah.
because I think I have less interesting takes for like what movies I think are overrated. So Adam can
Okay.
talk about some other ones.
The one
But
we'll spend the most time
Adam,
on here. Oh,
Adam,
what were you saying?
did you put a Black Mirror episode on this list?
No, I didn't put this list. This is letterboxed.
Oh,
This is
this is why you
automated.
make your own list, man.
This is
yeah.
my ratings versus the consensus.
Like that
This Black
entire
Mirror
bottom
episode,
row beside Scorch Trials is like insane to me.
Yeah.
this Black Mirror
No,
episode is
that's
garbage. But
insane.
Arrival is the one I'll spend the most time on. I think it's the second most overrated film behind Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's a very dumb premise, but again, I
No,
can
it's
explain
not.
that. I can
I
explain that
don't
in a bit.
think, can I be honest? I don't think you can explain what happens in the movie. Like I genuinely
I
don't
can.
think you can
I
explain what
can,
happens
but
in the movie.
okay. Frozen, this is a
No one gives a fuck,
personal,
bro.
it just, I despise it. Again, these are more just The Last Jedi, we all agree is bad. Some of us think Rise of Skywalker is worse. I
I
think The
haven't
Last
seen
Jedi
it.
is worse. No need of spending time on that.
Harry
Again,
Potter? Which one
Harry
is that?
Potter and the Scores Trials, again, we don't really have to go over that. These are just on there automated. The Big Lebowski, I just think is too all. It's not my style, but I could see why someone would like it. That's where it differs from some of the other movies on here. I could see why someone would like it, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. If we want to talk about the menu, we can.
Yoni, have you seen the menu?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, we don't have to go
Dude,
over
the
it too
menu's so
much.
fun. I don't know why you're hating
The
on it.
menus, it's a very dumb premise.
It's
It
so fun.
objectively is a
It's so
dumb premise.
interesting. It's
It's
cool.
very well acted. That's the only reason it's a two-star. But the actual premise is maybe the dumbest I've ever seen behind
Dude,
Arrival
it's
and
cool.
everything
What's it
I don't
everywhere.
know what
about?
you're hating on. It's a
What's it
better
about?
premise than Tenet. Actually, it's
What's
not
it
It's
a better
about?
about a
premise. It's a
murdering restaurant. It's idiotic.
That seems cool.
Um,
Ray
you can
Fiennes is
watch
in
it.
it, bro. Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas
Yes, it's
Hoult.
very well
I'll
acted.
watch
That's
it.
the only saving grace.
It's
The
only like an hour and a
Godfather
half
we already
each show.
talked about. Into the Spider-Verse we already talked about, and Django we can talk
The
about. So I was
last
thinking,
three, the last three you just mentioned, Godfather, Into the
yeah, we
Spider,
already talked about
Django
these
I
three
have
as
all
well.
of those at 4.5 or higher.
That is
I mean, they're
insane.
all three stars. It's not like they're all one
The
stars.
f
They're all three
Bro.
stars.
Come on.
The two we'll talk about in depth are Arrival and Django because we've either talked about the rest or they're just not relevant enough. So let's start with Arrival. I'm going to give you my reasoning. I actually purposely chose this as the background because it's one of the more idiotic things I've ever watched. I purposely put this as the backdrop so you guys could all witness how stupid this movie is. For all of you watching, this is her putting up human trying to do translate with some of the most advanced beings ever. But we'll just go overall real quick. Arrival is you can describe it in so many different genres. Arrival, the overall premise.
Wait, do like a spoiler free and then we can say like spoiler warning
Yeah,
parts as well.
spoiler free. The overall premise is a giant ship of would it be spoiler to
Aliens.
say aliens? Okay, yeah. A giant ship of aliens comes to Earth. Nobody knows what's going on.
There's like 12. There's not just one giant
Yeah,
ship.
there's
It just
12
seems like you
ships.
haven't watched the movie.
Multiple ships. There's one that they eventually go into, which is why I mentioned one. They eventually go into it. They explore it. They have to translate things, and I'll stay spoiler free. Multiple countries try and work together. It's the definition of the Russia, China, evil, don't want to work along. Very cliche. No need for it.
What?
It's so very
No, that
slow.
is not at all
It
how
is
that's portrayed.
it is
It's portrayed
very
as the US
slow.
is the problem because of what they're
It's
trying to do.
it's one of the slowest movies I've ever watched and
Is
very
it's not that
unnecessarily
slow.
slow. It
It's
takes
not that
way too long to get to the point, and I would love to talk about it with spoilers because that'll make it much better. But spoiler free, if you guys want to chime in, feel free.
Joseph, you look like you wanted to say something,
Yeah, go
but
for it,
I just
Joseph.
think, first of all, the way you are describing the kind of geopolitical aspect is completely ridiculous and not
Yeah.
true. They're not just, it is not at all described as Russia and China bad. It's that the US, part of it is that the US is not doing a good job at communicating and that they're trying to share like secrets with each other, but the US is ahead because of Amy Adams's character being a brilliant linguist. But like, again,
You're coping
I
for
don't,
me.
are you saying you have a problem with the like how they're starting to like understand the beginning part?
That's part of it. It's on par with me for Project Hail Mary in terms of translation. It's just dumb.
So
It's dumb.
linguists have you can read it, you can read about this.
Okay.
Linguistic professors or anyone who have analyzed the film have said at least the beginning part before it gets more into the sci-fi aspect of the linguistics. The beginning part where you're understanding how you would try to learn a language with someone who doesn't understand it is very accurate and start like very accurate, very like realistic to what would happen in this scenario. But you know more than the linguistics about how the accuracy of linguistics, right?
That's an awful argument, but okay.
How is that an
Um,
awful argument? I just proved you
it's a very
wrong.
lazy argument. Let's just get into the spoilers because that's where most of my critiques come in. The movie being slow is a big part of my
It's
critique.
not slow, but
it's
It's
not that
very
slow.
slow, and anybody that goes and watches it, feel free to leave in the comments if you end up coming back to this. Let us know if you think it was slow or if it was well paced. I would assume the majority would agree it's slow, but again, that's up to opinion. Nothing in the movie matters. All right, the aliens know in 3,000 years that they're gonna get help. Okay, if you think about it realistically, the aliens know they're gonna figure it out. Think about it that way. Think about the plot in the sense that
yeah,
the
what's your
aliens
point?
come
The
to
aliens
Earth.
know everything that's going to happen, but the
So it
movie isn't
doesn't
about
matter.
that.
There's no
No,
stakes.
no, the
It's
movie isn't.
idiotic.
No, the
Let me
movie
finish my
isn't
sentence. I'm not
about.
done. That was the overall. Just let me finish the sentence. There's no actual like consequence. The aliens know it's going to get solved. They know they're going to get the help. There's no anticipation. There's no risk. It has no rewatchability because it doesn't matter. This is one of the most zero like least rewatchable films of all time.
That is a horrible take.
Just because
Horrible
a movie has
take.
a plot twist does not mean that it's rewatchable, because some plot twists change the way you view the rest of the movie.
And
This
that's exactly what
eliminates
this
all of the
does.
This is a
That's
stakes.
prime
exactly what this
example
It
of
does.
that.
eliminates every single bit of the stakes. It's the translation is solved in such an awful way. And I'll let you guys describe it because if you have a more nuanced take on it, I'd love to. But I would just say, not only is the translation awful, what is the point of all of this hype being up if the aliens at the end of the
I
day
think you're
know it's going
fun.
to get solved?
I think you're fundamentally misunderstanding what this film is about.
All
This
right, I'd love to
film
hear it.
isn't about the aliens. It's not about like the future of humanity. It's if anything, it's like a closer to, at least on the emotional or stakes level, a character study on Amy Adams' character. Like
So it's
that is what the stakes are about. That's the emotional core of the film. And her the twist is like the kind of the devastation for her and understanding she has to deal with the impacts of that and the like philosophical question that that kind of implies is the stakes. That is what you take away from this film. The takeaway isn't like the result of what happens with the alien civilization. Like,
That's not the point of
dude,
the movie. So I watched this movie very recently and I loved it. And I watched it around 2 years ago, and I had a pretty similar opinion to Adam 2 years ago on my first watch, and I turned it off with
it's because it's very slow.
25 minutes remaining, not knowing that there was a plot twist because I guess the whole time I thought it was going to be this alien versus human kind of thing, a typical alien movie. And then I rewatched it recently, and I understood that the movie isn't about the aliens coming to Earth and wanting to danger Earth, or it's not about like who's gonna win, if that's what you're thinking, the aliens or humans, or what's gonna happen to humanity. That's not what it's about.
It
The
just
plot
feels like
twist
there's
is
almost
great.
nothing you take away from this movie. That's what I feel about it. It's just
I
so
don't.
empty,
What do you
low
take away
stakes.
from Tenet? That
Uh,
movie has no emotional core,
that's not true. That is not true in the slightest. This movie is trying to be emotional. It's
and
trying
it
to,
And it
works.
does an
it
amazing
doesn't
job.
work in the slightest.
All right, let's move on because this is taking a while.
All right, now that we're done with the rival, we're going to move on to my next rated lower than average. Again, the rest of these either on other people's lists or we have already talked about. So the only last one we're going to have a relatively long, lengthy discussion about is going to be Django Unchained by the most overrated director ever, Quentin
That's
Tarantino. And this
You're just
movie is the
rage quitting.
perfect example of why Tarantino takes such a good premise, such a great core idea, and just ruins it with his Tarantino style. So I'm going to explain why. First of all, he gets unbelievable performances from Christoph Waltz, a little bit overrated by Jamie Foxx. I wouldn't even say overrated. I don't think anyone thinks it's that great. An unbelievable performance by Samuel L. Jackson, I will admit, and a
Yeah.
very overrated performance by Leonardo DiCaprio, but nevertheless, still very good. People just think it's one of the all-time greats. He gets all of those performances, such a great, beautiful story about friendship, about, I guess, an evil villain in a sense. But it's such a cool premise and it has such a nice ending. But it's just ruined by the Tarantino ness of it. And I'll explain. I'll skip to the end right now and just say the final fight is almost dumb, if not more dumb than the final fight in Inglorious, or not the final fight, the final explosion in Inglorious Bastards. It's so messy. It kind of undermines the entire. It's supposed to be, oh, everything builds up to this, and it just doesn't really feel like that great of a build up to me. My biggest critique on this movie after first watching it was it just drags way too much. Not just that it's too long, but there's so much unnecessariness, like if that's even a word, to this movie. It's just,
Like what?
what do you mean, like what? When they're
Give me
just
an example.
riding, again, they're nice shots, but when they're just riding through places, going through each town, when they first meet, that's cool, and that was a nice scene. But like the entire, I guess, the entire story of them eventually finding um his wife and finding Calvin Candy, who, by the way, it's another story, a very overrated villain who doesn't really have a backstory. The only part about him is he's a slave owner. Any slave owner is a villain. We all agree on that. What makes him special? What makes him a unbelievable villain that people talk about Calvin Candy to be? Really nothing. It drags a bit. The scene where all of that huge mob comes and comes and tries and attacks, it's very beautiful. It's also very unnecessary. um there's about 30 minutes I would have cut from this movie, and I think my biggest critique for it is that I expected so much going into it, and it was just way too over Tarantino for me.
I think that this is the least Tarant like of his major movies. I think this is by far the least Tarantino styled movie. I don't really
It's
like
like it's up there. I mean,
it.
I would say maybe Inglorious Bastards, but like at the
I
same
would
time,
say Inglourious Bastards and this are its
I would
least.
say or Once
Pulp
Upon a Time in
Fiction is
Hollywood until the ending, but like
no. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is easily his like most
I think
stylized.
Pulp Fiction's like his most.
Yeah, yeah, those two are his most, but this like there's not really.
He's
Not
just, you know what he's saying? He doesn't like the ridiculous violence, which is just good. I think he just doesn't like fun because not every movie has to be bland like a Nolan movie for most of it. And I love Christopher Nolan, but like comparing the flavor of a Tarantino movie versus like the flavor of a Nolan movie, like Tarantino movies are just more fun. There's more just like
there's,
excitement with the
there's
Tarantino
more life
movie.
to it. It feels
There's
more
more
lived.
life. It just the world feels lived in.
More life equals more predictable and slop.
What?
Yeah.
That those
I don't know what you're
I
those
mean,
saying.
this
don't
movie was
quite.
very predictable. We can all admit it. Not all movies have to have some crazy ending and plot twist, but I mean, this movie was objectively pretty predictable. That might
What,
not
that he
take away
won in
from.
the end? Yeah, that's
I mean,
fucking awesome.
obviously
That's
that
the
was going to
point.
happen. Everyone knew it. Calvin Candy was going to lose. I mean, I
That's
don't
not
love
a that's not
predictable
a
movies.
criticism. I mean,
I
a
don't
I
lot
love
of
mean, the
people
whole
predictable
point
movies.
is
That is a
you
criticism and a
hate
very
Calvin
fair
Candy
criticism.
so much, and you want him to die so much, and it's so satisfying when he does. And when Steven, who's just like obviously.
But I
Also
don't think it's
awful
that
like
satisfying
Candyman.
when he does because you barely knew him.
I
It's not
think
like he,
I think you're I don't think it's fair to say you barely knew him. I think Tarantino does it. He does the kind of show not tell. Just because there's not an exposition dump like in Tenet, like detailing everything, doesn't mean that you don't know the character, right? Um, I also think your point about there's some points where I'm like, I can see why someone would have this opinion. Like if you just don't like Tarantino's style, I can't really I can say I disagree, but like it's your
I mean, the
opinion.
extra gore was just kind of idiotic. Like
I mean, it's Tarantino style.
but
I
it's
think
just
it's
it's
sick.
just like some of those like on the bullets and I don't know.
I mean, it's sick. It's watching a movie. It's what you want to see.
It's not sick in
Um,
the slightest.
the other thing is like when you're talking about like you don't like that there's like a couple minutes of a
This movie was
compilation of them
boring. It
riding
was
horses,
boring.
listening to like Jim Croce music, like with Jim Croce, who's an amazing artist, and his music in the background with like beautiful cinematography. Like you're telling me that's not a vibe, like that you don't want to see that shot, that you just want to go from plot point A to plot point B to plot point C to plot point D without any
But the
cinematography.
movie's boring.
I
It doesn't.
completely
It doesn't.
disagree.
It
I don't
doesn't.
think there's a
It
single
doesn't
moment where this movie is
It doesn't
boring.
encapsulate any. Like, it doesn't immersify me in an experience. I'm never drawn in until the end, and by then there's like I don't really care.
You're
I
not drawn
feel.
in the dinner scene at Calvin Candy's house.
I mean, it's cool. I guess everyone kind of knows what's going on. The wife is obviously there as a servant. Again, it's just for me, it was boring. It's over Tarantino. His style is just garbage. Bastards was able to surpass that by like doing a lot of good things with plot, but the overall style of Tarantino just isn't it. And
I
people
think
that
you
think it
can
is, I'm not
have
going to argue with them because that's an opinion thing. My
you
actual
literally just
critique.
called it object. You said garbage like objective,ly and then you said I'm not
No,
going to
I
argue.
said his style is garbage.
Yeah,
But
that's not
but when I'm
Yeah,
talking
objective.
about
man.
this movie in specific, if you want my actual like critiques, I just think it's a very boring movie.
Well, at least say at least say like I think his style is garbage. Because when you
All
say
right.
his
Well,
style is
for
garbage,
all
that
you listening, whenever I say something's garbage, that's in my opinion. I'm not saying this is I if I say objectively in front of it, that's what I mean. If I say something's garbage, I'm saying it's in
I
my
just think
opinion.
like
I shouldn't have to put in my opinion in front of every
I
single
mean
thing.
when you say like this
Tarantino
amazing
style is
director
garbage.
who
That's an opinion.
I mean
Yeah,
it's your opinion, it's the wrong
exactly.
opinion,
Yeah.
but
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But again, it's
some
just boring
opinions
to
are just
me.
crazy,
I
but
expected so much and it just didn't deliver.
I just don't understand like do you think like here's a question. Do you think this movie would be better if it wasn't directed and written by Tarantino?
I
If like
think,
the base premise was taken for like Nolan or another director.
well, okay, obviously Nolan's different because he would have had some crazy plot twists at the end, and that's really not necessary in this type of film. I think a story about meeting a bounty hunter, them becoming friends, and them eventually finding his wife could have been done better by a director
So
named
you
not
think like
named
a Vin,
Quentin
like
Tarantino.
a if like
Villeneuve, give it to Villeneuve. As long as he doesn't mess
first
with
of
it and
all,
it's not as
you
slow as
can't
a
just
ride
give
home.
it to like another like if you the way you're
You just
describing
said you started that by
but here's the
saying give it
thing
to Ridley.
but
You started that.
Denis Villeneuve would never make a movie as bland as you're describing. You're
Yeah, this
asking for a
movie is very
vanilla
bland.
story about like you're asking for a vanilla point A to point B story. That's not what Denis Villeneuve would give you. Nolan wouldn't give you that either. If you wanted like a James Mangold or like some like boring ass director to direct it, that's
If
fine.
this movie was more like The Revenant, it would have been great because there was a good payoff at the end
So
that
you
it
wanted
actually
the
had
so it
been
should have
built.
like no dialogue.
so you
Like the
wanted
movie
no
with insane
cinematography?
dialogue should have no dialogue.
What?
Man.
You wanted
This
no
movie, which
cinematography? You said that this movie dragged because of the cinematography.
No, I didn't say drag because of the cinematography. I said drag because some of the plot
You
points.
said you
no,
said
you
all the
said
cinematography stuff is unnecessary, like the shots of them in the riding in the sun, which are like the like awesome
They're
shots.
cool,
but
but
the
they're
shots
not. They
of the
don't look as good
trees
as the
in
Revenants do.
but
Huh?
you but
They don't
okay,
look as good
how it
as the
looks is
Revenants.
irrelevant to the fact that you said it drags. You can say I don't personally find this cinematography shots that interesting. That doesn't make it drag. By that
I mean,
logic, The Revenant.
what I really meant is there's just so many plot points that aren't intriguing in this movie. Just very
Like what?
boring. I already told you. It's just
What plot
it's
points
kind of
aren't
boring. I
intriguing?
mean, I already mentioned the
Did you say
I don't know what to call it, but the huge mob. I don't
the
know what.
scene at the beginning, or not at the beginning, but right after he meets Christoph Waltz? I'm blanking on his character's name in the movie, but when they're in the bar and then he like shoots the sheriff and he's making beer or he's pouring
That's
them beer.
fine. Another one I was going to mention. I already mentioned the big mob with all the horses coming at him. But another one I would mention
with
is
Jonah Hill.
the kind of the fighting scenes, like the slave fighting. You know what I'm talking about in front of
Mandingo
Candy.
fighting.
Mango.
Yeah, that's yeah. I just it's kind of idiotic to me, and I
That's
think it's too
that's an
Tarantino for
important
me.
part of the movie. It's showing how like the
It is.
dehumanization of
It's giving
slaves
you
and like that
backstory to
Calvin
Calvin Candy,
Candy is
but
sadistic.
Yeah.
the fact that you could have that scene in Candy still that irrelevant at the end of it. I think Samuel or what's the
I
name of
Steven.
I think
Steve.
Steven's the best villain in this movie,
But
and it's
I
not
don't think
close.
that's a bad take. I think they're both great. But I think you're kind of missing the point. Calvin Candy, the whole point of his character is he talks the
Sadistic slave
talk, but he
owner.
doesn't
That's
walk the
all you
walk.
have to
He's
say.
at the
One
end of the day,
dimensional.
at the end of the day, he's a human. He's a slave owner. He's a piece of shit. He's sadistic. He's not some god figure, and he gets exposed as being a fraud
So
and
what
being
else is
a
there
weak
to him?
man.
He's a one-dimensional slave owner that's
He's
sadistic.
not one dimensional.
He's
He
very
he
one-dimensional. Okay, give me
masquerades
two
as an
dimensions to
intellectual.
him.
He
Give
masquerades
me
as the
contrast him.
mastermind of
Two
the house when
dimensions.
he's really not all that. He's been indoctrinated his whole life, which is why he believes that
But
like stupid like
that's
children.
not multidimensional. Multidimensional is oh he really he this is his goal, but it's not his fault, or he's able to get over something, or
Dude, I think we've had this conversation. Not every villain needs some backstory, okay?
yes,
He's a
yes, they
slave
do.
he's a slave owner and he's the whole point of his character is he's sadistic and he's an idiot.
No,
Wait,
Zemo
Adam.
has a reason to be mad. He has a
Adam.
backstory. His parents were killed. What I'm trying to say is Candy is so one
Yeah,
dimensional.
but Zemo isn't like you realize like you can't compare
What makes
someone of
Calvin Candy
Zemo's
better than Zemo? That's the
the
question I
perf
have for you.
the performance is so much more interesting,
I
firstly, and
don't know if
better.
I agree with that. I think Daniel Brühl did very well with Zemo.
He, Zemo's character,
Tell
while
me why
he's
Candy's better
interesting,
than
he's
Zemo, straight
flat.
up.
Zemo is a flat character, and the
It's
way
the
that
opposite. Candy's the flat character.
Andy is literally like he's full of life. He's sadistic, but he's full of life. He's like he pops off the screen. Zemo does not pop off the screen, and you don't need to
That
pop off the
Zemo's
screen to be a
goal is
good
not to
character.
pop off the screen. It's to be a
No,
dark,
I think
menacing
Zemo does
revenge
his purpose
figure. He has a
well. Like,
revenge story.
I think we should let Yoni talk because we've been
Yeah,
talking.
Yoni, go for it. Who do you think's a better villain, Zemo or Calvin
I
Candy?
think Calvin Candy, but I have a question. You
Why?
said
We know why. Why?
I think Leo just gives such a more
Okay,
nuanced.
you can say performance. I'm asking the character, not the actor.
I
What's the
remember
better
Cal.
character?
I haven't seen both movies in a while. I
Okay,
remember
just give
going.
me your general. What is the better character?
I remember Calvin Candy have such a more of a lasting impact on me than Baron Zemo
Why?
by
That's what
mine
I'm asking. Why?
because
Because he's a
No, 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 not you, not you, Yoni.
because Leo feels so
Leo. I'm
evil.
asking character
Leo
plot
is the
wise.
character. He
No, no,
is a
no, no. I'm
character.
asking character and plot wise.
Okay,
Why is
Calvin
Calvin
Candy
Candy a better
feels so
villain than
evil.
Zemo?
Calvin Candy feels so evil. He feels so disassociated
Feels
from
evil.
humanity. He feels so pushed over the edge and he feels so evil. And Baron Zemo is just I don't remember anything about him. He didn't have a lasting impact on me in any way.
That's crazy. But okay, you're entitled to your opinion. But at
I
least that's
also
Wait,
just
I have a
think there's a
question.
key thing that you well let me say one thing. This is really quick, and then there's a key thing you said. You said what is it about his character and the plot? You can't just say like and the plot
yes,
because
you
of
can.
course like the Marvel movies villains are so inherently tied to the plots that like most villains in other movies it's about them as a character, not necessarily if they beat the hero or
That's
something.
not
Because I don't
true.
think that's how you define
The
the villain.
Revenant. That's not a
Doesn't
Marvel movie. The whole point is revenge. The villain has a reason. He just wants to survive. And then eventually at the end, there's like, just because there's, I'm not saying he's not good because he doesn't have like a backstory or like a thing, but it would help and it would make him more or less one dimensional than he is. Like a movie doesn't have to be a Marvel movie for the villain to be good. I think, I don't know why I'm not remembering the
I mean,
name.
do you think
Whoever Tom
Amon
Hardy
Goth
plays
is
is
one
10 times better
dimensional?
than Calvin Candy is as a villain.
Do you think Amon Goth is one dimensional?
Sorry.
Is Amon Goth one dimensional
Honestly, I don't know too much about him in real life,
in the
but
movie?
in the movie, he's not because you have the scenes of him downstairs just wanting to be loved. You have those scenes of him. I don't remember what her name, but whoever the person that they took captive as her maid, that scene downstairs makes him two dimensional. We don't have one of those with Calvin Candy.
I
Not
completely
one.
disagree. I think it's more again, like I said, shown not told. I'm gonna let Yoni talk because we've been talking, but
There's no response there because Amon Good
I don't want.
has
Okay, I
scenes
can
that
say he's
make him
shown not told.
multi-dimensional.
You can see his reliance on Steven that he views Steven more as a fatherly figure because his father
What
was
scene
clearly
shows that?
his over reliance. He's always asking, "Where's Steven? I need Steven by my side." A lot of that's like his over
If
reliance on Steven.
okay, sure. Yoni, go for it.
well, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Um, You said that every villain needs to have a backstory. What
I
about
just said that they
what
don't.
you just said that they did?
I said they don't, but it
10 minutes,
helps.
like 5 minutes ago, you said that they did.
No, I just said about a minute ago. You guys can skip this back. I said every villain does not need to have a Marvel type backstory, but it helps them be less one dimensional. Those are
How
the
is
exact
who
words.
is the better villain, Sador or Calvin Candy?
By the way, Sador's not the best part of Tenet. Um,
Who's a better villain? I just asked that. I didn't ask what part type of tenant he
Here's
is.
what I would say. I would say Leo does a better job as an actor. As a character, Sador's better.
Horrible take. I
Okay.
mean, I think that's a laughable take.
But Yoni, what was your question?
I was gonna ask, do you think the Joker is a great villain, even though he doesn't have a backstory? Obviously, the answer is yes, but you said that every villain needs to have a backstory. I remember
I
you saying,
didn't say every villain has to have a backstory.
Joseph, do you not remember him saying that?
What? What?
Joseph, do you remember him saying
He
that?
said something. I don't know if he
Oh, I
said
did.
those exact words, but he said something like Calvin. One of the reasons Calvin Candy can't be in that tier, or like can't be, isn't
Wait,
an
you
elite
said
villain, is
something.
because
You said, I think
he's
you said
By
every
the way, the
villain.
Joker does have a backstory, but
Not in the Dark Knight, he doesn't.
the Joker has a backstory.
not in the Dark Knight.
That's not an answer to the question
I
or
mean,
to
the
the
Joker does have
comment.
a
He
backstory.
does not have a backstory in the Dark Knight.
The Joker objectively has a backstory.
He does
And
not have.
also,
He objectively does
the
not have a
Joker has
backstory in the
about
Dark
the Joker probably has 10 times the screen time that Calvin Candy has. And
Yeah, nobody's
his
saying that
character actually
Calvin
gets
Candy is a
fleshed
better
out.
villain than the
And
Joker.
by the way, the reason why I actually made that comment, you gave me a perfect example in the Joker. A character doesn't have to be a backstory to be multidimensional. It's a very easy way to make him multidimensional. But let me tell you what makes the Joker multidimensional. It's the fact that he's so evil, but he doesn't actually care about what he's doing. He just wants chaos. That's so different than Calvin Candy. Calvin Candy is so one dimensional and he doesn't have a backstory that would have helped him be multidimensional. Whereas the Joker doesn't have that backstory, but because you see so much of him in the movie, and at the end, he has that grand speech when he's hanging backwards with the Batman. He's like, I need you, you need me. That makes him multidimensional. You don't have to have a backstory.
Okay. You said that he did, but now you're saying that
I mean,
you
he
don't.
does. He
how is
does.
it not multi-dimensional for Calvin Candy to be on the outside this like brooding guy who's like supposed to be the super knowledgeable and sadistic guy, but on the inside, and he's still sadistic, but on the inside he's super insecure and he's super like you have the scene where they're going up the stairs and Dr. Schultz is like, should I speak French to him? And the lawyer who's bringing them up is like he's super insecure, like don't speak French to him. That's an example of how really like the slave like he's an example of the type of
There's
slave lawyer
nothing that
he
I
is.
took away from Calvin Candy besides him being sadistic. If you watch the Joker, if you
Okay,
watch The
then
Dark Knight,
maybe
you'll
pay more
take away
attention.
maybe 13 different things about the Joker.
Again, you're shifting the topic to
No, I'm not.
are comparing
I
him
just
to like the
described
best
it.
villain of all time or one of them. Like if he's in that conversation, then
I'll
yeah, I
compare him
think
to Zemo gladly. I took away like five things from Zemo. I took away one thing from Calvin Candy. And if we talk about Django as an actual character, I don't think he's that intriguing. He has a nice backstory, and I don't see to have something like why is
I think
Django a
some
great
characters are just allowed
protagonist?
to be cool as fuck and they don't have to have a tragic backstory or
I didn't
something.
say that Trevor. I said that Django has a backstory, but
He's
once
just
you
cool as
get that,
fuck. I'm sorry. There's just characters that are just cool as fuck. Yoni, do you agree with that? Like,
that's just not a
I
good.
wouldn't say Django's like like an all-time character, but
I don't agree. I think he's necessarily an all-time character,
he's
but
a
he's
great
not.
character
He's
for
not
the
that great.
movie. I mean, all the scenes that he's in, all the revenge scenes that he gets at the end, it's just great. It's great to watch. It makes you feel great.
It's
It's
over Tarantino.
cool. Joseph's right, but I don't think Joseph's saying he's an all-time. But yeah, I agree with Joseph. He's a great character for the
Joseph,
movie.
what do you have Django at? 4.5 or 5?
Me?
Me,
Yeah, Joseph. Joseph.
I have it at 5.
I have it as a
I
four.
think it's
You
I
have
think
it at
it's
4?
Yeah.
Okay, I can at least see that. 5, I would even see it if you have it at 4.5, Joseph. But the fact I would assume your 5 means there's almost no flaws. That's insane to me. There's so many.
5 doesn't necessarily mean that.
Okay,
5
that's
is
just
also
what I
about
assumed.
personal
There's
connection.
just so many flaws, but
I mean, again, I'm not trying to be the letterbox rating guy, but you can see everyone can see on the screen 4.3 average, and the most common rating is 5. You can see the 5 bars sticking
this is
out the highest.
exactly, I've made this take multiple times before. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast. If you care at all what the average letterbox rating is, you are performative. You should care about your own opinions.
No,
What
I'm
other
just
people think
saying
means
this just proves
nothing.
that people agree with
Nothing.
me, not you.
But no one that's the appeal to the mob fallacy. We just caught Joseph live on the podcast with a logical fallacy. Many people agree with me, so I'm right. That is a logical fallacy, and that's an awful argument in general. Just because the consensus thinks
I didn't say
something,
that's why I'm right. I just pointed
you
out a
just
fact.
said
I
Did
didn't say I'm
anyone else,
right. I just
Did you
pointed it
hear that?
out.
You said this
He
shows
didn't.
more people agree with me. Why does that
Yeah,
matter?
but he
It
didn't.
doesn't.
I didn't say it's I'm right. I
That's
just
a
said this
fact. But
shows
he
more people
also
agree.
didn't say that I'm right and you're wrong because more people agree with me. He did not say that.
I just said a
You
fact that
inferred
this
it. That's a
shows more
logical
people
Let's
agree with
fallacy.
me.
try it.
Every you guys,
That is
you
not
can
what he
everyone
just
can
said.
watch
Yeah,
that
you
and
guys can
rewind that
rewatch
and
it. That
listen
was a
to it.
logical fallacy by Joseph.
Okay, yeah, go back and watch it, and he didn't say that.
Drop in the comments whether you think Joseph committed a logical fallacy. That's enough on Django.
Wait, hold on, hold on,
Um,
hold on. Drop in the comments whether the Joker in The Dark Knight has a backstory.
Also,
no,
drop
whether
in the
you think the
comments if you
Joker in
agree with
general
this
has a
takes or
backstory.
if you
No, we're
agree
Question that
talking
was
like me and
about
asked.
Yoni
The
do.
Joker
question
in
that was
The
asked:
Dark
does the
Knight.
Joker have a backstory? He does.
He does not have a backstory in The Dark Knight.
You said in The Dark Knight. The original question I was asked was, does the Joker have a backstory?
In
In the dark,
2019, which
in
we
the
can get to
Dark
that
Knight.
in one
In The
of
Dark Knight, I
my
asked.
episodes,
I
maybe.
literally asked
All
in The
right.
Dark
We
Knight.
spent a while on these movies. Drop in the comments. This is going to be just a video on what you think about my takes. But that's what I've got. You agree, you disagree. Feel free to let us know. But Yoni, take it away.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Next episode is going to be my underrated movies and my overrated movies. So, as Adam said, drop in the comment, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.